Hormones are a huge topic, and if you are a man, don't be afraid. I know that hormones is typically a topic that is geared more towards women's health, and that's just natural, but don't forget that you have hormones too. And we do talk about men's hormones, testosterone, like the men's version of menopause, which does happen, but also just to keep in mind that you have women in your life. And I think that as I learned about what was going on in my body, I could communicate to my husband a little bit better so that he could understand not just who he's married to, but he also has daughters as well. And so I get it. If you're a guy, this may not be your topic, but if you're here and you're willing to listen with an open mind, I give you a thumbs up. For the rest of you, you women, this is definitely going to be one that you're going to want to share with your girlfriends to empower them, that they do not have to suffer. Hi, I'm Kristen Brunius, and this is the Overcomers Podcast. I am so excited for you to hear the stories of incredible people overcoming trials and turning them into triumphs. From everyday moms and dads to entrepreneurs to community leaders and beyond, you'll see how everyone has a story of overcoming, and those stories are what connect us all. Let's hop right in. Hey everybody, welcome to the Overcomers Podcast. I'm Kristen Brunius, and I am so happy you're here. If you don't already follow this podcast, do us a favor, hit the follow button, and this is definitely going to be one that you're going to want to share with your friends and family. Today we have Dr. Kris Devillier on talking about hormones. She is my go-to person with all my hormone questions. She has a heart of gold and a brain that is so big and so full of so much knowledge. We went an hour and a half, I'm just warning you guys, and I think I could have talked to her at least 5 more hours about all the different things. Hormones are a huge topic. That knowledge is power, and I think you're going to, I know you're going to learn a lot. So please share this with your girlfriends, your friends, family, whatever. And before we hop into the episode, I want to talk to you about 2 of my favorite companies that I do have affiliate links for. Number 1 is Soul Naturals. I've been talking about them for the last 8 years. Why? Because they work. And as we talk about in the episode, hormone replacement therapy is super important, but you don't just have hormones in your body. You have to support the rest of your body. So whether it's blood sugar balance, energy, digestion, I actually just finished drinking my protein, whatever it is, there are so many different ways that it's important to support your body, not just hormonally. So whether you're on hormone replacement therapy, you're thinking about hormone replacement therapy, or your hormones right now are totally balanced and you don't need hormone replacement therapy, you still need to support your body. So go to soulnaturals.com, use my code Kristen. I suggest everybody starts with the sample pack. It is one of each of the drink mixes, including 3 different kinds of protein. It gives you an opportunity to try some of our top selling products. It's $14.95. It comes with a $15 off coupon code for your next order. That's a great place to get started, just so you know what is what's going to work for you. Otherwise, pick your favorite product and use my code Kristen for $10 off. And then the second company I wanted to tell you about, we do talk just a little bit about hair, skin, and nails in the episode and how hormonal changes can change that. And that's something that I experienced myself. And I stumbled across this company called Divi. It's D-I-V-I. And I just liked, as someone who's kind of holistic, I liked how they came at it with cleaner ingredients, and there's essential oils in their products, and it's not super dirty and bad ingredients. And the website is diviofficial.com, and my personalized code is Holistic Kristen. That gives you 15% off. And then that affiliate program goes on to support the podcast. So I would love it if you would go check it out, diviofficial.com. Like I said, use the code Holistic Kristen for 15% off. And that just helps to keep the podcast going. And I'm just so thankful for your support of this podcast as we're continuing to grow. All right, let's hop into the episode. All right, I have been waiting for this day for a long time. I have my dear friend and mentor and just the beautiful Kris Devillier with us today. And Kris is someone who I have had the opportunity to learn from for, we just hit 8 years, Kris. Did you know that?
8 years? No, I didn't.
Yeah, so Kris and I, we know each other through the company Soul Naturals. It's a network marketing company that I've been a part of for 8 years, and it's more of a boutique company. And so when I say we know each other, we really do. We actually have like this weird family love for each other, even though we're, it's just it's a true friendship. And so Kris is from Louisiana. Remind me, it's not Baton Rouge.
Bro Bridge, so it's French.
Okay.
And my parents spoke French before they started school. That was their only language.
That's
So
awesome.
we'll have some accents in my speech.
Well, I mean, I might throw in a little bit of Chicago,
So
a
some
little.
Chicago, I made sure to have my proper attire with me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think we all think we don't have an accent, and I really don't feel like I have an
Have an
accent.
accent.
Do I have an accent?
Sometimes I will pick up on it, because you can tell the area that someone's
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But I don't feel like I hear an accent from you, but I think it's because I just talk to you enough.
Correct. And you're accustomed and
Yeah.
of the way I pronounce words. So I'll probably have a couple of them that, you'll have to go into a dictionary and say, "Oh, she meant that word. Oh, I pronounce it like this." It was kind of, it's kind of like goes back a friend of mine who was from North Louisiana. And I told her, I said, I'm gonna fold the clothes and I'm gonna put up the clothes. And she says, "What? Like, or you get down from the car?" And she was like, "What?" And so she was like, "You don't put them away." So those
Yeah, you're
little.
right. I guess we do say so. I'm reading this series right now, and it's set in Ireland. And at the beginning of the book, it has like a glossary of different terms. Like I'm trying to remember, they called the the hood of the car something weird.
Right.
They call
Yeah.
it like a blanket or something. I
Yeah.
don't.
You're right. And we've
Yeah,
never heard it spoken that way.
right. And I'm on book 6, I think now.
Oh,
So
wow.
now that I'm 6 books in, I don't even notice the Irish references because now I've gotten to know the characters and things like that. So I do think that that's how it works. You're probably right that I'm just used to how you talk and you're used to how I talk. But anyway, all
Yeah.
of that to say, welcome, Dr.
Thank
Kris
you.
Devillier, and we are so privileged to have you here. She is the hormone expert in my world. She's the one who, you know, untangled the world of hormones for me. And if you are a male and you are listening and you've just heard me use the word hormones, like don't run away because you have hormones. You actually do go through like a male version of menopause. And I can guarantee you that you have a wife or a mother or a sister or some sort of female in your life. And I can speak for my husband that once I started understanding what happens in my body, and I mean, I have 2 daughters too. I think I could speak for Dave in that just like getting it a little bit helps. And we're not going to go into anything gross or gory. We're just going to
No.
talk just levels, no different than what we would talk cholesterol levels or, you know,
It's
those
just
sorts of
normal with the
things.
body. A lot of people don't realize this is something we normally produce, both men and women, and we actually produce all the same hormones.
Correct. 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 So we're going to talk about that. So if you're a guy, don't run away. This will actually really help you to understand not only yourself, but the women in your life as well. So, but let's backtrack a little bit. So,
Okay.
Kris Devillier today, the hormone expert in my life, that was not your first career.
No, actually, I only had 3 careers in my life. So I was a waitress from age 13 to 16 at just a little local place down the road. And after that, I did 30 years in the grocery industry. So I read labels on every. Now, let's go backwards. My grandfather owned a grocery store. So I have read labels my entire life where you used to come and sugar was sugar versus now all the processed foods that we have and all the, I'm going to call them xenoestrogens. So what are
Mm-hmm.
xenoestrogens? They're going to be the ones that mimic and make our dirty estrogen, and that's a lot of the issues. So then I turn around and the company I was working for was going into chapter 13,
Mm.
And I saw the writing on the wall, but I had a hobby since I was 21 years old. And that hobby allowed me to be able to look at everything, go to a convention one year, meet with some of the owners of colleges, and that's when I decided to go to Trinity School of Natural Health because
Mm.
they would take all the credits that I already had in my hobby. I didn't realize I was acquiring, you know, a lot of credits that would actually test me out of a lot of the classes that I had to take. And so I dove right in. And 2 years later, I was like on the fast speed because I needed to get out of this career. I needed to move on. The company is no longer in our area. They still do exist in other states, but they're no longer in our area. So I made a good decision and ended up bringing me into my passion and my love, which is natural health.
Mm.
And
How
natural 24 years ago looked a little differently than it does today because now it's in every doctor's office. It's in every doctors are going to concierge. Well, that's exactly what we've done for many years.
how old were you when you made that career change?
So the train wreck with hormones hit at 36, and I would meet a mentor that I had for many years. And so at 36 years old was my wake up call. So
Mm.
that's when I would get exposed to the colleges that I would end, one of them that I would end up choosing. And I was 42 years old. And do you know, this is the, God wink. So do you know that when I was 21 years old, I read Tony Robbins's book and it said, if you had unlimited time, talent, and money, write down 100 items that you would do. And do you know, I wrote down that I wanted to be an entrepreneur at 42 years old.
Come on.
I can go show you that journal. It has a lot of misspelled words in it because I was not the speller, and we didn't have Google.
Yeah. Well, and what's crazy is I'm 42. And
Yes.
so that gives me a lot of encouragement because
Yeah.
sometimes I will look at people like you that just feel like you just have so much knowledge and various other people that I really look up to and I'm like, "Ugh, it's too late for me, you know?
And it's never
And
too late.
yeah, yeah. I
They
think that
say
gives,
most women will start a whole nother career and become successful at 50.
wow,
There you
I
go.
love that. So if you guys are listening and you're in your mid 30s to mid 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond, it is definitely not too late.
That's
Really,
correct.
it's never too late. So
No,
you decided to start this whole new career, inspired by your own hormonal, what would we call it?
train wreck.
Uh, Train
Chaos.
wreck.
Train wreck. I lived right next to some train tracks, so like the train and the train wrecks are like a real trauma for me.
Right, right. So you, like many people, and I feel like that's a pretty common story. I'm thinking of a naturopathic friend that I have. She similarly ended up going into the natural health field when her son got diagnosed with Lyme disease. And
Ah,
it seems like it happens a lot where in the process of advocating for ourselves or for our own family, all of a sudden we find ourselves advocating for lots of people. So now you're in the natural health world. What does that look like for you? So you have a brick and mortar.
I have a brick and mortar building. As a matter of fact, that's what I started up at 42 and started in my home, just meeting with clients one on one or on a phone call. And then I would grow into, another location where I would move out and rent one room. And one day my husband was jogging and he said, I found us the perfect building. And I came in here and it was like 1970s green carpet, and he was like, no, I'm telling you, like it's a solid building. And he was right, so we've been here since 2011
Mm-hmm.
and in this location and building, and I come here 3 days a week. We are open 5 days a week, but I come in and see clients 3 days a week. I work with people one on one through Zoom, through many, many different ways. I even have this Voxer app that I use where I work with people through my anti-inflammatory eating. And they, it's almost like I say, you have me 24/7, but I answer when I'm available. But that's kind of how you get into my inner world.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about hormones because I feel like that is your bread and butter. That is your area. That's where you shine. Um, so the whole word perimenopause was not a word that was in my world until a few years ago. And in a way, I kind of feel a little bit like self-centered that I'm like, this was out here, but I never paid attention to it. It's like when my husband had a red truck. Like I never paid attention to
It's
red
just,
trucks.
now you see them everywhere.
Now I see them everywhere and I can't stop seeing it. And the same thing with perimenopause. Like as soon as it hit my radar, I can't open Spotify without seeing,
Yeah.
something about perimenopause or I hear it. It's in my Instagram feed or whatever. But there's a lot of people out there. My best friend just said to me recently, she's like, I didn't know there was something before menopause. And I looked at her and I was like, do you not listen when I talk?
Remember, though, we have to hear something over 7 times for it to land.
That is true. That is true. So let's talk about the different stages because it used to be you went straight pretty much from like puberty to having babies to menopause and men had nothing, right?
Oh, wrong.
Okay. So
Bah.
break down the stages for us, please.
Okay, so there we go. We start with puberty.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as we mosey on into our, I'm going to say 20s to 30s and 40s is perimenopause because I'm even seeing some late 20s with having a lot of the fertility issues. After you have a baby, perimenopause is real, even in those times. We have menopause, we have postmenopause, we have andropause. So we have many different stages that we're going to go through. And the funniest thing is like perimenopause can last anywhere from 2 to 10 years.
Mm.
Well, I was like, when I was 36 years old, I was like, it was knocking on the door. Well, what is perimenopause? It's when that estrogen to progesterone is really playing with one's dropping, one's rising, which is causing the menstrual cycle issues or irregular periods, hot flashes, mood changes. Hello, if anybody's listening, mood changes in your teens, in your 30-year-olds, in your 20-year-olds. We're wondering why divorce is so prominent. Well, sometimes when this menopause or perimenopause or andropause is happening, we're not understanding the person anymore.
Right.
So that's
Right.
and then the sleep disturbances, the vaginal dryness. So even after having a baby and breastfeeding, you're going to have vaginal dryness.
Right.
So all of these cycles are really, but it's going to depend on the individual. Not everybody, you can't sit and kumbaya with your girlfriends or your guy friends and everybody's going to have the same symptoms. That's untrue.
Right. Right. And just to clarify, what is the name of the men's menopause, if we're going to call it that?
It's andropause.
Okay. So why don't we start there?
Okay,
Because since men don't have like
so that's
various
male
different.
menopause.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about that.
So what starts happening is a gradual decline in testosterone and the androgen hormones. So the pituitary gland has to tell the testes to make testosterone. But
Hmm.
if we're having, the unspoken DHT, which goes back to the prostate issues, if we're having a high elevation in that, then the pituitary gland is going to turn around and tell the testes, hey, wait, we have too much, don't make any. So then we're having this low testosterone, not even knowing to go check our DHT. So I do that through saliva testing, but however, that's more advanced with your doctors that are not even ready to hear all of that because they're not trained in it yet. And then, beginning around 40s and 50s, there's this certain, change in process that starts happening in your body. That's when the cholesterol starts going havoc, and they want to put you on cholesterol medication, which the domino effect to that is going to be glucose issues. So then your glucose is going up, and welcome to metabolic dysfunction. So
Yes.
metabolic dysfunction is when glucose, hormones, and also the aging process of this, cholesterol. So these are all that the cells are not processing fats, carbs properly anymore, and we need these good fats. But then we have so many of the seed oils that are available now in our foods that, it looks like we'll be making a change. And in 2025, I never thought I'd be sitting down and actually like saying this statement I just said, where we're going to see this change in food that for so many years it's been put in, and now everybody's taking it out. I specifically
So good.
have this potato, like I'm the potato chip girl, so they have these sweet potato chips, 3 ingredients, nothing else in it, and it's made with the avocado oil. So a lot of people are seeking that out in our natural health world, but men haven't even thought about all of this till they get hit with this cholesterol and not realizing, guess what? Cholesterol's the mother hormone.
If I understand it correctly, cholesterol is the precursor to testosterone. So if you lower the wait, am I understanding this correctly? If you lower the cholesterol through statins, you inadvertently lower the testosterone,
You're going to lower all hormones. There's
and
not
then you,
just one.
right,
Mm,
because it's a dance. So like, okay,
yeah.
this is layman. This is Kristen working it out on the air.
That's okay. Think of it as dominoes. Who's first?
Okay,
Who's the first block? Cholesterol.
cholesterol. So when you put a man or a woman on a statin, then to lower the cholesterol, then you're going to start to see the testosterone go down. Then you're going to start to see some of the glucose numbers go all over the place. That's when they start talking about insulin resistance, prediabetes, eventually turns into diabetes. Also, with lower testosterone, don't you see more weight gain? Well,
Yeah.
weight gain,
The belly weight gain, just like with women. So even though in postmenopausal we have the belly weight gain, men will have that same belly. Think about,
right?
what do we call it? The
Beer belly?
beer
I
belly.
just thought it was because they like beer.
Well, some of them don't even drink
Some
beer.
of
They're
them.
drinking wine. The healthy option.
Right, right.
And yeah, so, when we're looking at it, okay, we're not realizing that we're talking about a steroid pathway. So a steroid pathway is going to be cholesterol first, and then it branches off into those adrenal glands, and the adrenal glands are going to make the progesterone and the DHEA. So we have, right after cholesterol, we have pregnenolone. Then we have that DHEA that's going to go off to the testosterone, that's going to go into the DHT, and there's 2 different dihydrate testosterones go into the 3 different estrogens. And then we have to have the genetic codes in order to detoxify these hormones. So via the liver and the kidney, the way in which that we detox. Then we're going to have these adrenal glands that make, they're the stress hormones that go back to the cortisol and the aldosterone, which controls sodium and potassium. So if men have stayed in a stress state for too long, their sodium and potassium is off. It's going to cause the blood pressure to go high. There we go. That's the one I was looking for, the blood pressure. So, the blood pressure goes high, then that's all the domino effect, but that nobody ever looked at their stress hormones. That's the progesterone, that's the DHEA. That's all made in our adrenal glands. Now, the ovaries also make a little bit of progesterone. However, when we are thinking about all these changes, in perimenopause, the progesterone is the first one, but we're not realizing we've been stressed through pregnancy. We've been stressed through raising kids. This is all new. You've never done it before. Your grandmother didn't give you the manual of how to raise all these children, back to back and put up with all the everyday stress. And then God forbid you add 2020 in there and all the different things that we've seen within the last 10 or 20 years. Then we get to this age where, menopause. So menopause is 12 consecutive months with not having a cycle. Okay. So some people will say, well, the year or two before I had all this heavy bleeding, I had many changes like this. Well, if our doctor would actually put us on progesterone, he would actually save us from all of this. But what they're going to advise instead is going to be either an ablation, or if
Mm-hmm.
you're religious, it's going to be a, it go, how did they say that? Oh, we'll do the DNC because you're, a certain religion, because they want to match that. And it's just interesting how that's the option, but they're not going to give you progesterone. I look back now on my journey. If they would have given me progesterone at 36 when I went into my doctor's office complaining, instead he wanted to give me an SSRI. He wanted to, I mean, there was like 4 medications I left with. They were paper back then, and I cried on them, and I had tears all over them. And I don't even think I brought them to the pharmacy. I was going to be embarrassed because God forbid you brought it up to your doctor. He was not listening to you. So then when I approached this menopause, so most of the times they say menopause is at age 51. I was 55. So I menstruated from 9 years old to 55. I can actually tell that story now. I would have never disclosed that at 36 because you were embarrassed, you know? And when, you're thinking like I menstruated this much, I should have an ample supply of estrogen, right? But what I didn't realize was it was the tanked out progesterone that was causing the moods, that was causing the heavy bleeding, that year before, that was causing all these hormone drops and shifts that were all taking place, that was causing the brain fog. God forbid you'd walk into a room and you couldn't even remember why you came, right? The decreased libido, the weight gain, the joint pain,
Mm-hmm.
that frozen shoulder is lack of estrogen and progesterone.
Yeah.
When I
Yeah.
learned those, I was like, wow. Okay, now let's go up to postmenopause. Okay, so postmenopause is for 1 year. Now watch this. You could be menopause and 6 months later you had a little breakthrough. You got to start all over again. Some people get mad. They are like furious in my office. And I'm like, no, we got to start all over again. So that's that 12 months. So what's happening is the hormones are shifting, but especially the estrogen, which starts coming low. And then what's going to happen is that's where the risk of osteoporosis and the heart disease due to that lack and decrease of estrogen. Now, let's take our teenagers. They're coming into estrogen. We're
Mm-hmm.
going out of estrogen. Okay. In going into estrogen, if it takes 2 and 3 years for these girls, let's say from 13 to 15, or, God forbid, I was 9 to 13, to get that normal rhythm of that 28-day cycle. But however, if our estrogen or our progesterone aren't doing their beautiful dance of, the estrogen's going to be day 1 through 15, and then day 16 through 28 is going to be the progesterone. If that's not in sync and in balance, and through stress, we're blowing out. So any girls that went through 2020 who had all these unknown, I couldn't even imagine being that young and not understanding, because
Mm-hmm.
I knew at my age to protect my brain and to really get away from all the stress, and I knew how to do that, but they didn't have that coping mechanism because they were not being able to go to school. Like, why is all this happening? Well, guess what? That's blowing out your progesterone.
Mm-hmm.
Then when they finally went back to school, it's all the fears. It's I'm having to wear a mask or whatever. It's all the unknowns. Um, so these are all these different stages, and that's what's happening is the body's changing. Well, I was like, if I menstruated from 9 to 55, like I have enough estrogen. I had a very stuck mindset. I was not one of these that had the mindset that my estrogen, oh, if this is God wish, if he wanted this in women's bodies, well, guess what I'm learning now? Women didn't live to the ages we're living now. We didn't live, our men didn't live 40 years without these hormones. Women didn't live 40 years without these hormones. And in 2012, when we had that first scare by the media about estrogen causes cancer, which is now being disproved in 2025 of what truly happened with that study, how they stopped the study, how they didn't continue the study, and how something was released by two of the members on the board that was not supposed to release it, and the media got
They
a
would never do that.
I know, I know. You know, can you keep a
Yeah, hold
secret?
on.
I said, can you keep a
Interrupting this episode with Dr. Kris Devillier to remind you about our 2 affiliate links. The first one is soulnaturals.com for all of your body support needs. Be sure to use the code Kristen for $10 off or check out that sample pack. And the second is Divi Hair Care. Go visit diviofficial.com. Use the coupon code Kristen, Holistic Kristen, for 15% off. And all of that goes to help support the podcast. Let's hop right back into the episode.
secret?
Can you keep it? Well, hold on. Before we go into all of that, I
Yeah.
want to pull it back a little bit.
Okay.
So let's go back and let's just, for the layperson's view, let's go through all those stages.
Okay.
So adrenopause is for men.
Andropause.
That's andropause. Man, I thought
That's
I was going to
okay.
get that.
You got it. You got it.
That's when testosterone drops.
Correct.
And one other hormone. What was it called?
So it's literally when the testosterone and the androgen hormones. So
Androgen.
we have 3 different, testosterone hormones.
Okay.
And women have them too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in men, some of the things we as women can look for is like weight gain, tiredness, lack of libido, those sorts of things. Then as
Correct.
women, we go from basically puberty, childbearing age, somewhere in there. It could be as young as 20s.
Yep.
If it could
infertility,
all the way up to like
perimenopause.
It's perimenopause. The first hormone to drop is usually progesterone, which is your stress hormone. Then we go into menopause. That's when we start to see the dance with the estrogen. And then post-menopause is when you're been 1 year
consecutive with no menstrual cycle.
With no menstrual cycle.
Or you could be surgically put into post-menopause or menopause abruptly.
We didn't talk about that. But okay. So I just wanted to get that out there so that everybody gets that those are the stages. Now, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit. So I mentioned that progesterone is kind of the first one to go, and for me, that's when I can almost name to the day when I started to feel like, because I had this weird new fun panic that wasn't like old Kristen anxiety, but it was like planes are going to fall out of the sky, my kids are going to fall out of windows, all these really strange.
No, yeah, really coming into the way in which the body goes into hypersensitivity.
Yes. So during that perimenopause, that's when our progesterone goes.
It starts dropping, and unless you're doing blood work or you're doing saliva tests, they say the gold standard is going to be the blood work, which will absolutely indicate, your numbers. And the best part is, checking those numbers and seeing that. But, in these different stages, there's going to be different symptoms that go. So lifestyle, psychological factors, other health issues, all are key factors. So we didn't even talk about the low energy. That was the biggest one that hit you, right? I remember you oh my God, I don't even have the energy to go grocery shopping.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's important to feed your family. Or when you get into that grocery store, all the smells and the stimulations and the music they're playing is just it's going to affect your mood changes. It's going to affect depression, decrease muscle mass, increase body fat, insomnia, memory problems, reduce bone density. This is going to happen in men. Some of these symptoms aren't going to be as predominant in men, but with women, all of these major changes start happening, which is, we sit there and we say, this can't be happening to me. This is not natural. And we keep this search how many young girls have showed up in my office? I'm telling you, it's my hormones. I'm telling you, it's my hormones. And I mean, they go to their yearly checkup and they're ignored.
Hmm.
They're ignored.
For years, for years. And I can speak for myself. Like I remember right after my son was born, he's 12,
Okay.
was the first time that they started being like, "Oh, there's something weird with your thyroid." And I played this dance for 12 years
Yep.
before, I mean, before I really got to the bottom of what was going on. And then in the midst of this, I was introduced, through a lot of your education and, you know,
Others, yeah.
others, the whole idea of hormones. We're just, and I'm not saying all doctors, like, I don't want to, I think, especially like post 2020, that a lot of times we just generalize and we throw all doctors under the bus. And I'm not trying to do that. And in a way, it's not their fault because they haven't necessarily had the education either.
Well, I've recently read that there's only 2 hours of education in women's health with most medical doctors in their curriculum, and that's what they're advocating to change right now. And
Yeah.
no, I don't blame the doc. I'm a bridge with doctors.
Mm.
I collaborate and work with them, and the reason in which is because of the simple fact that there is a place for everybody. But a lot of people leave there after the 5 minute visit, and it's not doctors' faults. This is all an ICD code driven. If we
Right.
don't have a code to match something, then the billing and all of this, so it's a domino effect.
Hmm.
And like we just said, everybody goes into specialty fields, but yet even if we have our gynecologist, it's surgery, it's childbearing, there's so much more with women's health, and it's mostly going towards the earliest stages rather than the late. But however, I'm seeing that, in some situations, you have some very good experiences. And then in some situations, you have very, I'm going to say it, gaslighting experiences.
Right. And to your point, they don't necessarily have time, because
No.
they don't have time to go over, which we'll go into later, some of like the needs for supplements on top of,
Well,
hormone
supporting
regulate.
the body. I mean, it's a dance. It's a beautiful dance in supporting the body and understanding our body through all changes. And, I know we're bringing up hormones today, but I mean, you and I have both worked in the adaptogenic world
Mm-hmm.
for a very long time, and that all works with the stress. And
Yep.
so, I've always known about the stress hormones, and most people will get into that type of supplement first, if you really think about it, and you're not realizing that you're supporting a hormone.
Right.
You know, I love a new term that I heard from Dr. Kelly Casperson. She's an MD, she's a urologist, and they want to start a term. So we use HRT, they use PET therapy, PET, progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. But then we also have the adrenal glands, that make our cortisol, our aldosterone, and the DHEA, which are also a dance within all the hormones. And men as well as women, all of these hormones are in both of our bodies. Do you know what I recently heard? And I think you're going to really like this one. I recently heard that after our ovaries shut down, okay, so we're post-menopause and the ovaries are shutting down. Guess what hormone they still make? They're not making the estrogen anymore, they're shutting down and making that estrogen.
Testosterone.
Yes!
Is that why they get hairs on their chinny chin chin?
No, 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 no.
Okay.
That's that bad one, the DHT.
Oh.
That's what I'm gonna call the dirty hormone. Okay.
Okay.
You know what's so funny though? Everybody blames hormones on all of that. And you never even study all about like hair growth and like, have you ever done all the stages of hair growth? And it's so interesting because the way the skin has to detox or push things out or why color, hair comes a certain color. It's always interesting. And a lot of times it's produced by the stress hormone.
Really?
Yeah.
So, podcast number 2, Kris is going to come on and we're going to talk about hair and skin. So, um,
Oh,
so I think what people are gathering is that, how do I say this? I think oftentimes when we think about hormones, we're like, it's just progesterone, it's just estrogen, it's just
they don't
testosterone.
even bring up progesterone. Whoa, 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 whoa.
They don't?
No, they only say estrogen. Did you even know about progesterone before you had your train wreck?
I mean, like I said, I didn't see red trucks until Dave got one. Until
You
I
heard the word.
I don't really
Did
know
you
that.
even know where it was produced at?
No, I knew nothing.
Ah, yeah.
No one, I mean, Kris, to
It's
be
not something your
honest,
mom took you on the side and said, let's go get educated.
no. And so that's why
I
we're
think I
trying to
was
do
the
better for our daughters,
I think
right?
I was the strange mom through Girl Scouts. Like we went take all the classes, the science classes with the women's hospital back then. It's like I was like, oh no, y'all are gonna learn all this, because when I was coming up, I mean, I didn't even know what a menstrual cycle was when I started one.
Well, I feel like, especially so I grew up in a conservative Christian home, and I feel like period talk fell along the same line as you don't talk about sex.
Yeah, it's
Like
dirt. It's dirty. I was
all of
in the
it.
same strict home as you. Very
Yeah.
strict. Yeah.
And I don't even want to, I mean, I don't even,
But watch this. Their parents didn't do it, and the parents before that didn't do it, and the parents before that. So how we're the generation who's changing everything about communication and opening it up and educating women in a very, very empowering way about their bodies. I
right?
mean, most people, if I were to give them an anatomy test, down under, they would fail.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I would have failed even 6 months ago.
Correct. So watch this. What if we make that normal and we stop shaming people because of them not knowing something? Or, we bring up those type of conversations of just saying, I literally, people come up to me and they follow me in social media. So last year, in working with a coach, it was like, what's going to be your message? And I'm like,
Hmm.
what has been my message? It's like I kept looking for my purpose. Well, Kristen dug it out of me. I'm like, what? You're right. Okay. Oh my God, this is my story. Like everybody has a natural health story. Okay. Well, mine was always about my children until that train wreck happened for me. And it was the part of, oh my God, at 9, I started a period. At 13, I didn't understand my body. I was going through so many changes. At, 18, I got pregnant. At 36, I had, what is happening? I showed up, I begged a doctor. At 10 years later, I probably showed up at a doctor again and actually have those progesterone numbers, which were tanked and rock bottom.
Hmm.
And now I look back, I should have, all the times, nobody prepares a man of all the different symptoms that starts happening during andropause with the prostate, with all the issues. They just start thinking, oh my God, I don't have that desire that I once had, you
Well, and
know?
it's like overnight because it goes from, I've watched people that I've loved where all of a sudden it's like within months you've gained 30, 40 pounds. Within months you're falling asleep at the wheel. Within months you
Yes.
just are losing interest in things. And I
I,
look at, go ahead.
no, I literally was driving home. I would go to work at 5 in the morning. I was driving home at 1:30 in the afternoon one time. I literally would fall asleep on the wheel.
Hmm.
I had to drink coffee before I would leave work in order to stay awake. So what you're saying, the falling asleep, all of these things are real and nobody's talking about that.
Right, right. And I look around my girlfriends and I, you know, obviously my platform, those people who know, like, yes, it's Soul Naturals and it's all of those products, but which form the foundation. But I also want to scream at all my girlfriends, especially those, most of my girlfriends are in their 30s and 40s, some in their 50s, but the majority are in their 40s, and say to them, like, you're anxious, you're worrying about silly things because you have no progesterone, you know? And so that's the message that I've been screaming at them, like, please go get help. You know, do all these other things too, but please go get help.
No. And, that's the part, like, when should we start checking our hormones? Okay.
Right.
Most of the times, unless you're going to have infertility problems, they're never going to check your hormones.
Mm-hmm.
Men go to the doctor. Well, do men even show up at the doctor until they're 40 years old? No.
If your wife tells you to go.
To go. Right. And no, they still go because the wife tells them to go. Otherwise, they wouldn't even show up at the doctor. So they're not even asking. God forbid a man go see a female doctor. They will not talk about this, the sexual dysfunctions that's starting to happen with them. They will not talk about needing help. They will not ask for any kind of help. So they're not asking for blood work numbers on their hormones, on all hormones. So my advice to you guys today is go to your yearly checkup. I call it stack it on top of your wellness exam.
Mm-hmm.
I need a baseline of all of my hormones so I can understand my body as we live 40 and 50 years beyond what any generation has lived. I can't say that for mine because my grandmothers have lived to their 90s. My mom's in her 80s. I mean, I have to figure out how can I be here for a long time without losing my mind, my energy, my sanity, and still have friends because I didn't say something inappropriately because of like not having estrogen or progesterone. So get your baseline. A lot of times when we, in our 30s and 40s, if we could get a baseline from, okay, before you get out of your 20s, if you could get a baseline, guess
Mm-hmm.
what? You would actually know what your optimal number should be. Because what's going to happen is, like any blood work number, as you change, your range changes.
Right.
So I promise you one thing, I will be out of range in my hormones because I want optimization. I don't want menopause numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So when we can get those numbers, so men ask for a whole hormone panel, women ask for a whole hormone panel, and then what'll happen is if you can't get those type of numbers, today, this is what's beautiful. We have so much availability. Yes, it's out of pocket. It's not paid for by insurance, but it is paid for by your health savings plan or the other, insurance saving cards that you have. And it's called Function Health. So
Mm-hmm.
I was very blessed. I had a doctor that actually checked my hormones, but I did Function Health because after my appointments last year, I knew I needed to dig deeper because there was other issues coming up and it was starting with the cardiovascular system. And here we are, we're talking about hormones, but our number one cause of death in women is heart attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And every woman, so why did I go to Function Health? Because they were going to break down those cholesterol and fat numbers very detailed. I got all my hormones. There was over 100 markers that I checked. It's a very neat way to do it discreetly, especially if you're still in that. I want to keep everything a secret. I know a lot of people are very private, or they don't even want their doctors to know that they are wanting to know this information. So Function Health is a way that we can do that. And it actually checks blood, and then 6 months later, you actually get another check. So then I figured for this year, while I turned 60, I was going to face all of my health dilemmas or just unveil and check on me and just say, hey, what are my weaknesses? What are my strengths? What do I need to support? What do I need to, what do I need to build? And what do I know is very, very good shape for me? And put those so that way I can know, because a lot of people have body image problems. So it's like, I was never one of those people. I like to face all my numbers and my data. So I have a lot of data that it's almost like something fun for me. So in doing this, when I go to my doctor's office, I'm getting these numbers because different states are going to have different issues. So Kristen, if you in your state, is going to go to a doctor and be able to get all these numbers and everything's going to be hunky-dory. But if we come from like a state like Louisiana, who's the bottom of the batch in health, who cancer is the top, issue going on with people, it's not going to be as easy just because of the simple fact that there's a different law in every state. If you even get a concierge doctor in New York, he can't even send you a prescription to Louisiana. So
Really?
yeah, well, people don't understand state lines. There's so many rules and regulations. Okay, think about it this way, and I know this is really far-fetched, but you can go to Colorado and get, your gummies to fall asleep at night, and in Louisiana, you have to go to a pharmaceutical apothecary behind closed doors and pay twice as much.
Yeah. I mean, we have that here with Illinois, Indiana. Like about 2 miles behind me is the state of Illinois, and I can go over there and I can get whatever I want.
Okay.
But then I bring
So
it
guess
over
what?
here.
Hormones
Yeah.
are that back door also. Because
Right.
women, okay, we have no prescription. And okay, so when I say this, I need everybody to understand this correctly. Men can get an FDA approved prescription for testosterone. And they have over 12 medications for ED, erectile dysfunction, or sex, like hypogonadism, meaning lack of sexual desire, or all the different things. In the world, West Australia, 10 years ago, finally had a woman FDA-approved testosterone. 5 years later, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and August the 15th, the UK has women-based testosterone prescriptions. We still don't even have that in the United States. We still are being gaslit. We are still being told, unless you are going to concierge out-of-pocket doctors. And all of my hormones, I have to pay out of pocket. It is not paid for by insurance.
Right. And it's like,
But
we're
men
talking
get all
women's
of it.
rights.
Men will get a $5 testosterone. Their copay is $5 for their testosterone shot, and women won't get anything. Okay, so, when we're looking at the day and age that we're in, and I mean, progesterone is over the counter. You can get it, however, orally. You'll, have to get that through prescription. There are, many different kinds. So learn your bioidentical versus your synthetics. Because the big ruling, came from, okay, so let's use the term HRT. I just told you that they want to use the new term PET, which is going to be moving forward, but we know it as HRT, hormone replacement therapy. Okay, in 2012 is when that media and the scare came out. I wish I could remember the statistics of how many women were actually on HRT. Now, because of the scare, either doctors or women threw their prescriptions away of their estrogen. And back then it was that female urine, estrogen, which was Premarin. But what they found out is that the progestines, the prescriptions from the progestines, which were synthetic, are the ones that are linked to the breast cancer. So there's a book out there, and it's called Estrogen Matters. Don't buy the book if you're not a science geek and database numbers, because it's written by an oncologist and a psychologist, and they give you all of their journey in facing the FDA board, I think 4 times. And, fast forward to today, they're actually finally seeking them for that advice of, we had in this summer. So in 2025, I can actually say this summer, isn't it in Illinois that it took place, that they sat 20, many different degreed people sat in front of the FDA board to take the black box label off of estrogen that it causes cancer. So if you really want to know the numbers and you really want to know the true study, because if the media on a half an hour show gave you a 1 minute, so I don't know how long this podcast is going, but it's not just a minute. If they gave you a 1 minute synopsis that hormone estrogen causes cancer, they didn't tell you what kind, they didn't talk about bioidentical, they did not. Well, he breaks all of that down. He breaks down the numbers. And actually in there, he says that women on hormone replacement therapy for before breast cancer actually had a larger survival rate. I don't want to argue with anybody because let me tell you, I don't know about you, Kristen, but if you're having a conversation with your girlfriends and you even mention the word estrogen, what's the first thing that comes out of their mouth?
They're afraid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And rightfully. But watch this. We have the biggest compassion for breast cancer people, which I get it. But if you had colon cancer, you're second nature as a woman, but that could be estrogen dominant also. But nobody's talking about the dirty estrogen,
Right.
and why is it accumulating in the body is because the body can't get a receptor. So our whole system think about it as a whole symphony, an endocrine symphony.
Right. And I think in general, cookout conversations this summer, just listening to other women talk or sitting by the pool or whatever, like obviously I'm in that 40s where we're seeing the red trucks for the first time and it's all super new. And I feel a mix, like for me, I had a lot of shame and Kris actually walked me through it because here I am, the girl who's done adaptogenic supplements for the last 8 years, talking about balancing things, whatever. And then I had this whole train wreck happen. I decided to go on some bioidentical testosterone, progesterone. I'm not even kidding you guys. Like the first night I went on I took the progesterone was like the first night in a long time I felt my body relax. But I had this shame where I felt like I didn't want to share it with people because then I felt like I was stabbing,
Mm.
my whole persona that apparently was so important to me when it's really not. And Kris walked me through some of that shame and explained that it is a dance of the supplementation plus the bioidenticals. So I hear from my girlfriend's shame. Then I also hear from some girlfriends fear where
Mm.
I'm afraid, what could it do? It might damage me. And so there's a lot of fear. Then I hear a lot of almost like a religious thing where it's like,
Oh no,
well,
you're real.
yeah,
You're
we're like, God made my body this way. Women have been doing this for a long time. I can pray my way through it, which is, I am not disregarding belief because,
oh
like, I
no.
love Jesus with all my heart. So I'm not downplaying that, but I do hear some of that. And then of course there's the people who they're super excited. They're diving into the research. They're having really good. So I feel like there's such a vast array
But isn't
and
that in all things?
well it is, but I
Isn't
feel
that
like
in all things?
well, especially in this because there's not a ton of you out there. you know? Like
Well, I think you have to go through it and become so passionate about it. And not all people are researchers. I'm sorry, I'm a data. Well, put it this way, I have to really love the topic. But I mean, in my home, we will go from an engine and a car to hormones. My husband will tell me about, oh, I'm going to put this let's see, I'm gonna put this 454 motor in our truck and da 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 da, and I'm gonna get some ramped up. And I said, good, I'm gonna get some testosterone and I'm gonna ramp things. you know, so here's the guy versus the woman, and guys want speed and fast and all of these things. So it's like here we can go. It's like how slow do you want to go to learn this information with hormones, or how fast do you want to go?
right,
It's the
right.
dance.
It is. It is. I feel like we could talk about so many things, but I'm gonna ask two more
Okay.
questions. number one, I feel like we kind of touched on it, but like we kind of rabbit holed, and then we touched on it and we rabbit holed. So I'm just going to ask real direct. How young is too young to go on hormones? And could you, when you answer this question, talk about things like things that we're wearing and perfumes, and because I feel like your answer to that question has a lot to do with like what are we doing as young women to ourselves?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. You know, it's a very good question. How young is too young? Okay. I really want you to think about something. And you just made a perfect example of the part of the clothes we wear are synthetic, but yet we're going to be on social media and want to be the crunchy, I call me the crunchy menopausal woman. Everybody's crunchy looks different.
Yeah.
Okay. You're still going to wear some synthetic shoes. You're still going to, it's like, but we're picking up in our environment and everywhere we go, we're picking up what we call mimicked estrogens, whether or not it's the food we eat. I mean, it's everywhere. Okay. So when we have receptors that have to speak to each other, so we have an orchestra. And I actually, thinking about the way this orchestra works, the pituitary gland has to give the message to the thyroid. Because, we talk about hormones, but we're not even talking about the most prescribed medication, which is thyroid hormone.
Yeah, we didn't
Would
even
they
touch on
take
that.
you? Would they take you? Would they take your thyroid medication away from you? No.
Right.
I just recently heard a story where a woman went to her yearly gynecology appointment. She's been having multiple UTIs. She's been having major, like dryness symptoms, issues that she's telling me. She's not at an age that she's having active, encounters with her husband. And the funniest part is that he never, ever addressed vaginal atrophy for her. And when she asked for a vaginal cream that is bioidentical, that is going to stay localized, this is the biggest part that so many people, I can say this information over and over and over again, but if you walk away from this podcast with one piece of information, anything you put vaginally for the skin integrity of that moist environment of our vaginal area, it stays localized. It does not enter the bloodstream, and if it does, it's a very, very, like it's 0.0001. So he says, if you don't take it with progesterone, you're going to get cancer. I'm like, what? He told you that? Like some people, there's 20% of people who can't take progesterone, unlike you, Kristen, or me, that our bodies just loved it. And finally, we're getting deep sleep that I hadn't gotten in years. I'm not staying up from midnight to 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning and then exhausted every day. Progesterone is your sleep aid.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I know and I love that magnesium's the most spoke about. I think progesterone needs to be on top of magnesium. So,
Right.
that's the way in which I look at it. So, how young is too young? I'm going to sit here and tell you, watch this. Well, in their 20s, you're going to tell them not to take the estradiol shots in order to get pregnant for fertility. In every age, I can tell you how they're using it. I hate to bring this up. I know this is a Christian podcast, but I'm going to say this and you're not going to like it. And I want you to disagree with me right now. They will give people who want to change sexes, it is FDA approved testosterone for them, but not for me, because I'm in a monogamous relationship. I think we both have bodies.
Right.
I think we both have a purpose. I think they want the divorce rate to go down. How is that said? If we don't provide it for our husbands, they'll go find it somewhere else. I mean, I don't want that to be, but you know, the synthetic versus bioidentical, I think, is another thing that, like, if there's a second part to this that you understand about hormones, is understanding which prescriptions out there are synthetic, which ones are bioidentical. Because if you are wanting to do something more to match the natural process of the body, that's what bioidentical is.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to mimic and match the same pathway. And that is going to be, there's going to be different forms. Some people can absorb things transdermally. I recently learned something that I was like, wait, I didn't know this. So if you're going to do an estrogen patch and you're gluten intolerant, guess what? It's the glue is made of gluten.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah. And then they'll tell you, well, I get a headache if I take the pill. So you see, here we go again. So then they're going to maybe need to do the cream. So here's going to be where, you learn. I would prefer people get 5, ask the same question. Okay, so this person, okay, if she didn't have a cervix, would this doctor have still told her that she needed the progesterone? Because most women will need the progesterone if you don't have a cervix. Okay, if you had it surgically removed. Yet, some women can't take progesterone, and you're going to still tell them for a vaginal estrogen that can say, the reason I'm loving Callie Casperson's urology work is because of all the information she is bringing up on the solid studies that it would save billions of dollars in Medicare from women in their 70s, 80s, and 90s from not having UTIs. Like, this is the most untalked about. You will meet up with women who will look at your podcast or look at your social media, look at mine, and they will whisper to us, oh my God, yeah, I'm on that vaginal, I do the andros, I think it's a vaginal DHEA. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that's the DHEA. And they look at you like they only know the name of the prescription. And I'm like, I know what they're all called. And she's like, oh, we can't talk about that right here.
Because
And
of
I'm
the
like,
shame.
and I'm doing, baby, we should be talking about it so everybody can hear. These young girls sitting next to us, I think they all need to hear these conversations. So, for me right now, this year, my journey in just starting hormones, in changing my mindset, erasing a lot of very, very rigorous beliefs about hormones, diving deep in and understanding bioidentical versus synthetic and what I'm willing to do with my body versus, there's a lot of different ways you can approach it and everybody's going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
The pellets weren't an option for me because I didn't want the scar tissue. I didn't want to, am I going to be doing this for 20 years and I'm going to have to go through this twice a year for 20 years or 30 years? Because I don't think I'm getting off of hormones. That's my stance right now. So in doing this, I'm going to be checking my numbers every 3 months. I want to understand, and the stance that I'm taking is I came in with one hormone at a time so we can understand if one of them creates an issue with the body, you're going to actually know which one and you don't blame them all and throw them all out the garbage. You're going to be able to communicate with your doctor. The biggest part is you've got to communicate. You've got to know your symptoms. You got to start writing them down. And that's what I'm doing. I'm writing down what I'm taking. I mean, I do supplements. I love my supplements. I'm not going to throw away my adaptogenic herbs. And the reason I'm not going to do that is because when I do saliva testing or you do hormone testing, even with a top compounding pharmacy, they're going to check your circadian rhythm. And your circadian rhythm, any customer of mine that's been with me for a very long time that goes to a compounding pharmacy and they do a saliva test to get their hormones compounded, they all look at them and say, oh my God, what are you doing with your cortisol curve is beautiful. And she does, oh yes, I take my, adaptogenic herbs. And she said, oh, you know about adaptogens? So even compounding pharmacies are handing out adaptogens. So this is what we're doing in our boutique company is not new. And that's why I got so on board, is because I understood the powers of adaptogenic herbs. Well, the same way in which that hormones are going to come in, if we go through the death of my father, it was a very stressful time for me. Guess what? It could blow out all your hormones, including that stress hormone. So I was taking a lot more adaptables. So we're going to go through different events in our life. Your hormones are a constant change and roller coaster because they're a communication system. The message has to go from one place to the next to give it to the next and on down the line. In me checking them every 3 months for the next 2 years is I'm going to understand my numbers. If
Right.
you were to get numbers when you were younger, you're going to understand where you started off at and where you're going to be. So everybody's optimization is going to be different. Every doctor is going to look at you differently. But if you want to advocate for you, if you want to track, if you want to know your numbers, if you want to have your data, this is going to be the power of the difference of working with a doctor. Because then you're going to show them 10 years of numbers and they're going to look at you and say, oh, I can see you're doing your homework. I can
Right.
see you're
Right.
empowered in knowing what symptoms have gotten better. So the another part is write down these symptoms. You know, I turn around and I had written down, and maybe I started writing down in the last 20 years, like, oh my God, after suffering enough, being fatigued from sleeping 2 to 4 hours a night, hot flashes, mood changes, brain fog, not finding my words, forgetting why I went in a room, not being able to work on a project or thinking I had adult ADD, not being able to burn my dietary fats. In other words, like eating, I was not being able to burn fats. Midsection weight gain, the inches just kept piling in. Ringing in the ears. Did you know that that's a symptom?
It's so annoying too.
Right? So a couple of years ago in January, vertigo. I was like, what is this? Well, I just found out that was when those hormones start dropping. So shortness of breath during exercise, legs feeling like a ton of bricks, plantar fasciitis, bone
Hmm.
spurs on my heel, left shoulder pain, right hip pain, inflammation. In my 50s, being put on thyroid medication. The list just keeps growing and growing. And then you would think after having that much estrogen, then I get diagnosed with vaginal atrophy. And I'm doing, what? I'm doing this, this can't be. And it's like after a deep dive into looking at all of these things, if you go look at the 150 different items that for men and women that all of this causes, you would actually see that everything you're going to the doctor and complaining about falls into these categories. But guess what? They're not testing you for hormones. They're not writing prescriptions for you for hormones because, God forbid, the black box label that was wrongly put on estrogen. Do you know estrogen vaginal cream in 23 countries is over the counter?
Hmm. So crazy. It's so crazy. So, circling back, because I have two teenage daughters, right?
Okay.
Yesterday we're in Target. We're having an argument because I don't want them to use all of these perfumes and
Right.
sprays, and
Yeah.
I try to limit as much as possible. Like, I have an absolute no energy drink policy in my house.
Good for
But
you. I commend you.
oh, they hide them every once in a while. They're kids, you know, like they're just. But then we
They'll,
had this
they'll
whole
come full circle. I promise you, Scouts Honor, they'll come full circle.
I know, but like the hard thing as a mom, and this doesn't even apply like to hormone health. I guess this is just like a mom topic. It turned into this whole conversation of like, well, mom, you have a can of Coca-Cola, but like, why can't I drink
Yeah.
Gatorade? Or like, mom, you still wear leggings, but like, you don't want me to use body spray, and mom, and not every hairspray you use is natural. And so I just feel like kind of, I guess the point of this podcast is that to empower yourself to do the best you could do. I had this conversation with my kids where I was like, you're right. I drink a Coca-Cola every single day. That is like my treat. I love it. It's like a piece of candy for me. And I look at it like a treat, but I'm not guzzling down, whatever. And so you have to find what works for you. And you
Yes.
have to be empowered. You have to go get your numbers. You have to track them. You have to know what works for you. And the doctor's not going to do it for you. It's
No,
basically.
that that if there's anything I can advocate is even if you don't understand it at first, when you first do anything, when you first get on that bicycle and you fall, when you first do anything, you're not a professional at it.
Right.
Until you are going to look at those numbers, see how you're trending. And what I came to realize is when they did check my progesterone numbers, I think I had 4 numbers that they had actually checked in the last, like since 2018. And 2 of them were this year. But so I had 2 from the back. But guess what? All I saw was a fall. And I'm talking about drastic. And I'm talking about bottom of the
Mm-hmm.
back. Now, as you're going to want to learn more, it's going to bring you either to reading, it's going to bring you to classes, it's going to bring you to people, where you can really gather more information and what should these optimized numbers do. The biggest, most empowering thing I'm seeing right now is with inflammation and how with estrogen and testosterone, they are putting autoimmune diseases in remission.
Mm-hmm.
They are actually helping so many people get out of all of these joint pains and physical pains. And we're going to still have the fear because the media put it on us and we grew up with that thought that estrogen causes cancer because of the breast cancer journey in life. Okay. However, nobody's talking about the percentage of alcohol that causes cancer. And they haven't even read or seen those numbers. They haven't. Do you know that the survival rate of breast cancer is 98%? It's mostly when it gets to that a secondary or third, stage. But that metabolic dysfunction started 10 years before you were diagnosed. So you still have a metabolic dysfunction.
Hmm.
Understanding metabolic dysfunction, I started off this year knowing that my body doesn't break down fat like most people do. And it is so easy for anybody to look at me and go say, you need to do more cardio. But what they're not realizing is then you're going to burn my adrenals out more, which my adrenals will already burn out. That's why I chose to do yoga for so many years, is because I was actually rebuilding that nervous system. And, looking back today on this journey, on the information that I feared, I didn't even have the gene. I didn't have anyone in my family that had breast cancer. I think, yeah, my mom, one of my mom's first cousins, very, very, very few people. So I'm not even a person who has any of the risk. Now, one of the risks, I've never had a blood clot, but I do have a varicose vein. So that was brought up in my doctor's appointment. And then guess what I told him? I said, good, I'm going to bring that up in my cardiologist and we're going to do more screening every year. And guess what? When I brought it up at my cardiologist appointment this year, he looked at me and he says, whatever you want to run, what do you? So needless to say, we're running 2 more tests this year to do some preventative because what you know empowers you. So
Right.
if you know you have a weakness, then do some preventative and ask your doctor to test it more often and don't be scared of it. Because I told him, I said, I'm leading into hormones. Are you coming with me and are you going to help me on this journey? That's how and I had all my notes. I was ready for him. And I told him, I said, okay, so watch this. Women and men, if you have lipid panels that are going up and you are lacking in hormones, yes, you will drive it down with a statin. And most statins, like arovastatin, is going to be processed in the liver and the muscles. That's why you end up with muscle pain.
Hmm.
You didn't do the research to understand that there is possibly another statin that wouldn't process in the liver, but you're also not looking at optimizing your hormones, which is all part of a steroid pathway. And if you were to turn around and bring this up to your cardiologist and say, aren't all hormones part of the steroid pathway along with cholesterol? If he tells you no, I would run out that office, because that means he has no, he has no background on a pathway. And I know that this might be a more advanced term, but a pathway is exactly the whole schematic of a hormone. And cholesterol is it's an OL, it's an alcohol. It's alcohol based. Estradiol, OL. It's, they come from that family. It's all in the alcohol based family. So when we're going to indulge in the alcohol, yes, it's going to, guess what?
It's going to mess with your hormones. Yeah.
Because the liver processed that first.
Right. Yeah, I got one more question for you, but one thing that you and I have talked about that I just feel like we haven't mentioned here is that I feel like there's two different pools of people. That there's like sort of the holistic realm, which I fell in, where when I started doing the bioidenticals, I felt a lot of shame because I felt like I should do supplements only. Supplements balance your body. I shouldn't have to do these specific targeted things. And then there's the other side as well, where they're, I don't know what I would call it, maybe more Western medicine, maybe. That's, I'm doing my hormones and I don't need any kind of supplements. All I need is my hormones.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. And so there's like these, not to group people, but there's kind of like these two perspectives. And I think what I'm hearing you say and what I really believe in is that we can do both. We can have the support of hormones, but don't just support your hormones. Support, your body's blood sugar balance.
Your weaknesses and your strengths. You're gonna learn your strengths, but learn your weaknesses. And this is where we would do in the natural health realm, we would do a questionnaire, and it was a body system questionnaire. And so we have 9 body systems, and I've taught that for like 12 years at the beginning of my career. Every month we would have a class and we taught body systems. So you have a urinary system, you have a cardiovascular system. You can't take the blood away from the heart. They're together. Well, guess what? Every one of those receptors need hormones.
Right. So don't stop with your minerals and vitamins and
yes, they're a very good combination of giving your body that, we've sold in the natural health industry, we've sold progesterone for years and years and years. I have a homeopathic that you could get it as a liquid drop. There's many different ways to get it in. You can get it as a liquid drop. You can get it as creams. You can get it compounded. You could get it from a pharmacy with Perimetrium, as Perimetrium. So there's many different forms. It was when they mixed the synthetic estrogen with the progesterone, and they used the non-bioidentical progesterone, that the whole book shows you that this one category is the issue. So bringing minerals, vitamins, as we age, we don't turn our proteins into amino acids at a rate that we used to do. So you understanding, get you a body scale. Some people don't even want to look at a scale. I do it every single morning because I'm empowered now. It has 13 different subcategories, and it helps me look at my body differently. Am I accomplishing my goal in burning this fat, this stubborn fat? Or am I losing muscle mass? Am I losing hydration? So the part is figure out your goal and then learn which nutrients are going to help you gain and get more. And I'm going to sit here and tell you, like you hear everybody, oh, I just want to detox. I need to detox my liver. I need to detox my liver. No, you actually need hormones. Because, there's certain processes in the body, and they need this major endocrine system. So the endocrine system is all the organs, the glands that make hormones. Just like you have a digestive system, your gut health needs estrogen. I mean, I am like picking all of this apart right now, and your muscles need, the testosterone. And think about this. If estrogen was the problem, true problem with all cancers, which, I mean, I get it that, they check that to see what's the dominance of it. But wouldn't we stop doing fertility drugs? Would we stop doing pregnancy? Your hormones really, really raise. Your testosterone gets into what, the 3,000s and 4,000s when you're pregnant? Your estrogen climbs, your progesterone climbs. Wouldn't all these hormones like not be used in so much other therapeutic ways?
Birth
And
control.
okay, watch this. You ready for this? I didn't know this one. Do you know why they came out with the birth control pills that you had 3 weeks on and then the sugar pill for 7 days? Was to match the Catholic religion that you still needed to menstruate in order for it to be okay, according to like, it's in the book. They
For
talk
real?
about how they got in the 1970s, how they got birth control pills okay with all the religious leaders. Yeah.
You kind of left me speechless. I'm still processing what you said earlier about the FDA approval for sex change hormones. That part left me speechless. You've successfully left me little jabber, you know. You've left me speechless twice now.
Well, this is the way I look at duality. Let's bring up all the topics that they're talking about within hormones and not leave some of them out, no matter where we stand in life.
Right,
And
right.
if we were to really look at it and how many ways in which that it is being used, but yet you're going to deny me as a menopausal woman or shame my 69-year-old friend or my 70-year-old friend and not give her a bioidentical vaginal estrogen and then want to gaslight her and tell her that she's going to get cancer if she uses a vaginal estrogen, that
But then
you're,
give hormones to a 13-year-old
thank
who
you.
might just be a tomboy. We don't know yet.
Okay,
Or we don't, you know.
that's where I'm frustrated. And I
Yeah.
mean, God forbid we're putting every 13-year-old girl on birth control
Birth
pills.
control. Right,
So, okay,
right,
and
right.
that's synthetic. That's synthetic. And it's not about what we all choose. We all choose everything according to how our nervous system can handle it. However, would you please give the 50 and 60 and 70-year-olds their rights to hormones and
Yeah.
stop the shaming, stop the gaslighting, stop the constant scare and fear tactics, and really give us documented data rightfully.
I think that is the perfect place to end. Kris Devillier, thank you for being an advocate for me in my life. And for all of the women who are going to listen to this, for empowering them to track their numbers, to speak up for themselves, to empower. We appreciate you.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much, Kristen, for being a friend, a colleague. How you say that? Agree to disagree, to always, but most of all, to give me this voice and this opportunity. Thank you.
We'll see you guys next week.